Once again, it's that time of the week. NFL Week 5, let's make some predictions, baby. Now before we get into the video, if you enjoy it, leave a like on the video. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button, and let's get into it. Alright, first things first, the Thursday night game between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. Now I think at the beginning of the season, this was probably going to be considered a close game, but I don't see any way that the Commanders lose this game. The Bears are terrible, and I don't see them getting any better anytime soon. So we're going to take the Commanders over the Bears on that one. Then we'll move over to yet again another London game, 2 weeks in a row. How lucky are we to have football all day long on Sunday, with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills playing over in London town. Jacksonville stayed out in London all week because they were there last week, obviously, beating the Falcons. But the Bills are just a much better team at the moment. I think they're going to end up getting the win quite comfortably. I mean, they just destroyed the Dolphins, who put 70 on the Broncos the week before. So I think the Bills get the win here. Up next, we got the Titans traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. This is going to be a pretty fun game to watch, I think, because all four teams in the AFC South are 2-2, obviously, and it's really up for grabs. I mean, it's kind of hard to pick a favorite out of this division. Like, you'd still think Jacksonville is, but they haven't necessarily got off to the best of starts, so who knows? But I think the Colts get it done at home. I think Richardson's going to get a solid win here for the boys today, and I think they're going to do the business over the Titans. Next up, we got the Ravens traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Now, obviously, the Ravens destroyed the Browns last week. The Steelers got destroyed by the Houston Texans last week. So if we're just going off of momentum, I think the Ravens will win this game. TJ Watt's probably still going to have like 3 or 4 sacks in the game, but I think the Ravens are going to do the business in Pittsburgh. Up next, we got the Jets taking on the Broncos in Denver. And this is a tough one to call. I mean, everyone was super excited for this one before the season started because you had Sean Payton talking crap on Nathaniel Hackett, you had Aaron Rodgers, and you had Russell Wilson potentially going against each other and everything, and now, you know, both teams aren't really all that good, and Aaron Rodgers is out and all of that, but I think I'm going to pick this game based on who I think the better quarterback is, and I think that argument is a lot closer than people think. I do think Zach Wilson has improved a lot ever since Aaron Rodgers has shown up, but I think they figured out how Russell Wilson works in an offense there over in Denver, so I think the Broncos barely squeak away with a win here. That home altitude's probably going to come into favor for them as well, so I see the Broncos winning that game. Moving forward here, we've got the New York Jets taking on the Miami Dolphins in Miami. The Giants stink. The Dolphins are pretty good, so the Dolphins are going to win. I think the offense is going to explode for at least 40 points again this week for the Dolphins. The Giants might be lucky to score a couple touchdowns. It's all going to depend on if Saquon Barkley's healthy. And he's on my fantasy team. He's listed as questionable, so I'm going to lean towards he doesn't play. So, yeah, there you go. Up next, we've got the Houston Texans traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Now, both of these teams, I think, are a little bit better than we originally thought going into the season. However, I think I'm going to go with the Texans to win this one because they just seem to have a little bit of more momentum and a little bit more stuff going on. Obviously, the Falcons lost in London to Jacksonville last week, and the Texans got a big win over the Steelers. So I think a little bit of that momentum is going to carry over, and they're going to be just fine. Up next, we got the Saints traveling to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots. And both of these teams, I think, are a little bit underwhelming, would be the right word to start the season here. I don't think anyone figured they would be like world beaters, but, you know, I think people were expecting them to be a little bit better than they have been. So this is a tough one. Mac Jones and that offense looked terrible against Dallas last week. And the Saints really couldn't get much going against the Bucs last week, so I think I'm going to go with the Saints because they've got Alvin Kamara back. He's missed the first few games of the season due to suspension, and so now he's back. I think he's going to find his groove, and he's really going to help that offense for the Saints and help them to a big-time win. Now, I got the Bengals traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Now, if you asked me week 1 what the final score would have been on this game, probably would have said like 30-7 for the Bengals. But man, the Cardinals don't look as bad as we first thought, and the Bengals are not they just haven't figured it out, man. Jamar Chase is it's getting a little feisty in post-match press conferences now, saying he's always freaking open, which, you know, he's one of the best receivers in the game. Like, sometimes he doesn't even need to be open. You can still throw it to him. Obviously, Joe Burrow is still somewhat hurt, so who knows what that means for them, but this is a tough one, dude. I think the Bengals are going to treat this as much more of a must-win game than the Cardinals, obviously, because the Bengals have more expectations. So I think the Bengals are going to pull out a win. It's probably going to be ugly, and it's probably going to be close, but I think the Bengals get the win in this one. Up next, we got the Chiefs traveling to Minnesota to play the Vikings, and the real question on everyone's mind is, will Taylor Swift be there? Because if not, no one's probably going to watch this game, right? So we'll see. I would think that she's not. The whole situation, you know, people have their opinions on it. For me, it is what it is. You have to. The NFL is trying to market to a whole new set of eyes, a brand new audience. So maybe personally, I think it's a little over the top. But hey, if it means there's more fans for the league and therefore you get more money spent on tickets and merch and all that in between, it's a good business model. So we'll see how that plays out for them. I think they could potentially overdo it, but I think right now they're still, you know, not quite there. But enough of all that. Chiefs win easily. The Vikings aren't terrible, but they've only won one game this year, and yeah, they aren't going to win this game. The Chiefs are going to do them in just fine. Green Bay and Raiders are the Monday night games, so we'll come over to the other NFC games here. We've got the Panthers playing in Detroit against the Lions. And I've said in every single video I've made, I have a soft spot for the Panthers, man. They're just back when Cam Newton was a quarterback, I grew up there, and it just pains me to not pick the Panthers. But I am very high on the Lions this year too. I had them winning that division, and they've proven me right so far. They are just a great team. Outside of that crazy loss against Seattle, in overtime there in Detroit, they've just looked unreal. So I think the Lions get a pretty comfortable win. Obviously, you can tell by this little red marker right there that they had the Thursday night game, a little mini bye, as it says. So, yeah, a couple extra days rest, they're going to be just fine. Up next, we got the Eagles traveling to LA to play the Rams. Now, this one's going to be very tough because the Eagles are a good football team, but they have not played their best football yet. And they also have to travel across the entire country to play a football game. So for me, this is either going to be one of two extremes. I think the Rams are going to shock them in a pretty hefty style, or I think the Eagles are going to finally figure it all out and have a great explosion of offense, and their defense is going to figure it out a little bit as well. So I don't see this being a close game. I think whichever team wins is going to win pretty significantly. That being said, I do think the Eagles figure it out. They've won every game. They've figured out how to win ugly, and move on. So I think they're a little sick and tired of that. So I think they're going to be just fine. I think they're going to get the win here against the Rams, who have been better than some expected, but I don't think they get the win in this one. Moving on to the Sunday night game, quite easily the best game of the week. We got the Dallas Cowboys traveling to San Francisco to play the 49ers. Now, you've got arguably the two best defenses in the league, arguably. The 49ers offense has been unstoppable. The Dallas offense, they haven't really been as active as they've needed to be, really, because, you know, the defense helped them out big time against the New York Giants there in week 1, and then same thing this past week against the Patriots. They just, you know, the defense scored, I think, at least 14 points in both of those games. So the offense is still really good. They just haven't probably flexed their muscles as good as they want to. So this is going to be a great game, potentially a future playoff matchup as well. So this is going to be a fun one to watch. I do think the 49ers get it done just because their offense is just a little too deep. They've got so many different options. They got so many different ways to slice and dice you. Don't get me wrong, the Cowboys defense is great, and their offense is really, really good as well. So I think this is a very close game. I think whatever the spread is, you probably take the underdog to get the points. But yeah, I think the 49ers end up pulling through. And then finally, we have the Monday night game. We've got the Packers against the Raiders. I think the Raiders are a little bit, maybe some would expect it. Some think they're a little underwhelming this year. You could probably say the same with the Packers. They've got a couple extra days rest by this little red marker, that mini bye, like I said, with the Lions earlier. So this will be an interesting one. Green Bay obviously traveling to Las Vegas, so there's a little bit of that concern as well for them. But I think the Packers figured out. I think they get the win. The Raiders just haven't really been that good of a team this year. So, obviously losing that game against the Chargers on Sunday in the last minute and like 10 seconds or whenever that final interception was, just heartbreaking stuff. I don't see them coming back and getting a win here against the Packers. I think Green Bay is going to come through and get the W. So there you have it. There are my week 5 picks. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Tell me what games you think are going to go differently, what's going to happen in the games. I would love to hear your input. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it. I greatly appreciate it. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button for all kinds of new content coming in the future. And until next time, I will catch you later. So take care and peace.